As somebody who has been a toy collector for quite some time, one of the things that I always find absolutely fascinating is learning about the history behind some of our favorite franchises. And in today's video, I have an exclusive look at some mind-blowing behind-the-scenes footage of the creation of one of my all-time favorite properties. Cowabunga! Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan. Thank you for joining me for another video. Real quick, if you are new to the channel and you enjoy what you see here today, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you never miss out on a new upload just like this one. So recently, within the past several years, we got to see an amazing documentary for one of my all-time favorite franchises, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Released by Definitive Films was Turtle Power, and it really gave us an amazing kind of behind-the-scenes look at the creation of this amazing franchise of my four favorite teens who love to gobble up pizza and fight crime. Well, now the same folks who produced the Turtle Power documentary is back with a brand new release. A new Kickstarter has just launched for a sequel of sorts to the Turtle Power documentary. It is titled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Evolution, Mutation, and Reboot. This is a documentary, or essentially a bonus feature that kind of adds on to that documentary that was previously released. You see, while Definitive Films was producing that documentary, they acquired so much amazing content, much of which came directly from the creators of TMNT themselves, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. So much footage that they couldn't use all of it. Well, now, all that stuff that didn't get used before, all the stuff that hit the cutting room floor, even stuff they've acquired since then, is being packaged together to give the fans one of the most amazing behind-the-scenes looks that we have ever witnessed for one of our favorite franchises. And today, I get to give you guys an amazing sneak peek. Definitive Films was kind enough to share some amazing content with me that I get to share with you first. This here is but a taste of what you're gonna see in their new release on Kickstarter. This footage that I'm about to show you comes directly from the camera of Peter Laird back when he and Kevin Eastman first visited with Playmates Toys as the pitch was happening to produce the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. What you're about to see is history. History that has been seen by so few people. Buckle in. This is amazing. We're gonna get some snippets, and I'm gonna cut in with some of my thoughts on some of the amazing things that we are bearing witness to. Let's dive in, shall we?
Hey, neat.
You know what sound turtles make?
What?
Kids? Woof, woof. I'll turn it around.
Now, do we think this is neat or not?
This is very neat. Beans.
Incredible.
I'll flip through some of the things that you got here.
Yeah.
Alright. Let's go this way. These are some ideas that we have for mutant characters. Or P, I should say Pete has. Wolverine mutant. Cute. Something. Don't
Flip past that one quick.
Now this is cool. This is very neat. Very neat. I like this one.
How you like that one, Ken?
Yeah. Crab. This is a good one. This is Punk Warthog with snot gun, I believe, or something, something similar. Mohawk, very neat, very neat. Gorilla, Biker. Blink Cyborg. Throws football with his foot. Don't know what these are. Now this is the ultimate. So is this kind of...
So right away, this is completely mind-blowing to me. So what you see here is the pitch turtle, right? We all know of the pitch turtle at this point. It's sort of like that first, like, this is what the toys could look like version of the Ninja Turtles. And here's Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird looking at it, holding it, checking it out for the first time, and discussing it. It is absolutely amazing to see. On top of that, Kevin starts flipping through Peter's sketchbook to show us some of the mutant ideas that he has come up with. And we see some very familiar faces in there. The early versions of both Bebop and Rocksteady, as well as some other characters, are right there in that sketchbook that Kevin is flipping through. Unreal. But we got more to see.
And the one thing is, G.I. Joe is still strong.
Mm-hmm.
It was introduced in '82, and usually if a toy line, especially action figures, they can last 3 years, that's fantastic. 3-year life cycle is really good for this industry. I mean, the percentages of a successful product are probably 1 in 10, so it's very low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By the way, this is BS, but I just want to let you know what the category's like.
Okay.
So G.I. Joe is the #1 action figure line for, so I guess, various reasons. One being that it's, the patriotic, the all-American. But I think the other thing is it's because it's a real good price value. The figure costs you $2.99, $3.99. His accessories are real low-end accessories, very inexpensive. In fact, if you ever opened up a G.I. Joe box, you'll find out that it's a bunch of sprues. I mean, it's like a snap-together model kit.
Right.
It doesn't come assembled.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think it'd bug most parents, especially nowadays, since they're both working. But what's happened is it's just such a good value, parents pick up on it, and the kids pick up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lasted. Masters of the Universe died this year.
Yeah.
It's just about gone. From a peak of, I don't know, $500 million in sales, they'll probably hit maybe 150, which almost dropped in 1 year. So they really hit a brick wall. And they were on their 6th year.
Yeah.
So they lasted longer than most.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, time out. Pause right here for a second. First of all, rest in peace, Masters of the Universe. Talking about the death of Motu. It hurts a little bit right here, but that's okay because the birth of Turtles is getting ready to happen right here. And I found this particular conversation so interesting. As Playmates Toys is pitching to Kevin and Peter, one of the things they're talking about specifically is G.I. Joe and the low price point and the value you get with G.I. Joe, with quite the focus on the way G.I. Joe handles their weapons. They're even specifically talking about those 90s versions of the Joes that came on the sprues and their unpainted weapons, which is what Ninja Turtles ended up doing, at least at the beginning of the Turtles line. What an amazing connection that I've never made before, and there it was, inspired by what Joe did.
I think the fantasy themes got saturated. You have Thundercats, you have Masters of the Universe, you have your space themes with Star Wars. So probably from a marketing standpoint for the toy industry, we've got to kind of keep away from a total fantasy, which you guys have done in large part because it's a parody,
Right.
which means you've got at least 1 foot in reality somewhere, and that really helps. So another reason why the line is so great is because we don't have to go total fantasy.
Right. We like the fantastic, but I always felt the like Isaac Asimov when he defined fantasy versus science fiction. Science fiction is where someone, if something happens, you explain exactly why. You have some kind of rational reason why it happens. Whereas in fantasy, someone can point their finger and something will happen.
That's right.
For no reason other than the writer says that can happen.
Right. And exactly. I want to keep that feel of the Turtles that, hey, they can be walking down the street and the first thing you think are humans in turtle costumes. I mean, that's magic. People really don't ever know that they're turtles other than a couple parties. So I think that's a real interesting part.
Don't go too fantasy like Masters of the Universe. All right, look, Motu's my other favorite property, and they just keep like, stop it. However, I really like Peter's interjection here, and I really like the way he describes like the difference between fantasy and science fiction. And it really seems like Playmates is like dead set on turtles not being too silly. They say that multiple times throughout the entirety of this whole thing that I watched, where they don't want it to be too silly or too campy or too fantasy. There are many times where they say, don't make it too He-Man, don't make it too Thundercats, which is really, really interesting to hear them say. But Peter seems to know a balance a little bit better. He seems to understand what kind of balance he wants, and he definitely seems to be pushing for a little bit more than Playmates is asking for. It's really interesting.
Yeah. You've got the 4 turtles and Splinter.
Right.
Another important thing, there's 2 other probably important elements for making a successful action figure line. One is you got to have a lot of differentiation between the figures. Because if a kid has one and the other figures are the same, where's the collectability? And we know there's an inherent limitation. It's probably the only limitation of turtles I can think of. It's perfect in every other respect. It's unique, it's exciting, is that a turtle is a turtle.
Yeah.
And
Especially our turtle.
Yeah, they're identical.
but they're fantastic. And like this, and you look at this, you know, if you mention a turtle, I think, a turtle, it's kind of wimpy. You look at that sucker, he's ready to kick ass.
Right, definitely a kick-ass kind of character.
He is. And we got 3 others. We're trying to, some of the ways we're thinking, this isn't any genius thing, but one would be different facial expressions. You know, if one's a growl, one's a grimace, different facial expressions. A different color for each one. For instance, the handle to his weapon would be, let's say, red. Let's say this is Raphael, he's Berserk. A red handle to his weapon, a red mask, a red belt, a big R initial on his belt buckle, a red knee pad. So we'll give him his own color. So kind of different color breaks between the figures, one way. The different facial expressions. And I was mentioning, I think, over the phone,
I like the packaging idea.
the packaging idea, so we'd have them in different poses in the package.
Right.
Again, kid might get it out and it'll go back to the same position, but it'll give an idea that these are different.
Right.
Wow. Right here, the birth of the multicolored bandanas. I love the way Playmates was explaining this to them, talking about differentiating the 4 turtles so that they look like 4 different figures that people need to buy, adding the initials to the belts, giving them each their own colors. And Kevin and Peter totally seem to understand that. They seem totally on board with that right away. We always knew that that was the reason, but it's amazing watching that discussion happen.
This much taller than the other
That's
turtles.
what I mentioned to John.
And maybe more posed, more upright.
Would that be enough, though?
Well, I can't remember what John said. Maybe he said it wouldn't be. Because I mentioned it, could we make him a little taller? Maybe that would better able to identify him as the leader. As much as I'm saying, I'm still not sure whether we could really focus on him more than the other turtles enough to say that he is the leader. Where Splinter is so obviously different.
One thing that to think about is, if this whole animation thing goes through and, it seems like it's going to, the personalities will come out in the stories. See, that's one thing that we find with the comics. I mean, hey, if you just looked at the comic, at the drawings of the turtles, you couldn't tell one from the other except for the weapon. You couldn't say one's the leader.
Right.
But, everyone who reads it, all these little kids, they know Leonardo's the leader. They know Raphael's the crazy one. They know Michelangelo's the goofy one. They know Donatello's the serious one.
Right.
And I think once the kids start getting into the stories, and especially, if the animation is going to be on TV, and they're going to be absorbing these kinds of stories, and, the toys will feed into the TV and vice versa.
Right.
They'll come to know, those various aspects. So
That's a
that,
good point.
and if one thing that, is very key and crucial to our stories and to the identification of the turtles is the weapons. And, if you have Leonardo packaged in such a way so that he's either holding a sword or the swords are prominent in the artwork on the package, it's going to be, that's like instantaneous. That's Leonardo, that's the leader, that's this character.
And then you had, like you were talking about the colors too, like I did a bunch of color samples that we sent. Like Leonardo would have the red, the red sword handles and then the red mask. And then each one had a different color.
But things get even better right here. So This conversation was talking about like the leader of the team, and Playmates really seemed to want to push Splinter as the leader of the Turtles because he's the standout. He looks different. But Laird and Eastman are really pushing to make sure that Leonardo's the leader. And Peter goes on to describe that they've realized, even just writing the comics, that like it's the personalities that people identify with, and that's how they know. And once this plays out in the cartoon and the personalities get out there, kids will understand. And they were right. He also points to the significance of the weapons. And again, he was right. Those dudes got it. And I love it. And I love to see like the back and forth. This is amazing.
Ballbuster.
There's a hair on there. One line.
That don't get on the camera.
You that I have
Can
one.
you get that?
What is the name of that character?
Ballbuster.
Seriously?
Yeah, well, we didn't have any problems with
Buster
that.
Ball. No.
No, Puntor.
Powerfully spring-loaded leg right here. You cock it back at a kind of a weird position. I mean, it's got a knee joint, but that doesn't work. Cock it back here, and then you get your trigger in the back, and you aim this thing, almost like a gun. And this thing is sitting in the exact right position. This ball is sitting in the exact right position, so when this leg hits it.
I'm like coma things.
So that was probably the most silly character that I thought. I didn't really,
Yeah.
you know, too beyond, you know,
Maybe too
much. But you could have like a bum or something that was in a dump that did have something like that that might be neat if you was just...
Actually, maybe.
So this is the villain talk, right? And one of the things that's important to know about this early pitch from Playmates Toys is that they were pretty adamant about making all the villains humans. They wanted Shredder and his gang to all be humans. No mutants, no silly stuff. No, they even made references to like turning it into a zoo and stuff. They didn't want to do that. They wanted Shredder and the bad guys to all be humans, but they did kind of concede and said that we can do more mutants as good guys. So it's really interesting to see them pitching some of these original concepts for what they were thinking the villains could look like here.
Actually, though, Kevin came up with an idea when we were leaving yesterday that I thought was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, I did know. Did I?
There's so many that, you know, it's one of those.
And this could tie into another place that, you know, if the line does well and, you know, it continues on next year, to introduce a place that's kind of like the one that I did a doodle of, the Shredder's Pit of Ooze or whatever.
Right.
Where he mutates things. And what I was thinking was to take like the four bad, dirty human guys that we have now, and like the second year, maybe even the third year, I don't know how the time would work, but to do the same characters but as mutant animals.
I mean, everything has almost been done at some time or another, and it's putting that new slant on it, you know.
The one thing that I agree with you, there were a lot of mutant animal things, but the one thing that hasn't been done, as far as I can tell, is doing mutant animals or beast-like characters dressed in contemporary outfits. I mean, they're all kind of fantasy Thundercats kind of outfits or ninja outfits or something like that. You don't see...
you don't see it being realistic, really, other than having the beastly face or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Just like we were talking about yesterday, having the evil side, mostly human or all human, you know, to some degree, and then the good side having maybe a combination, but mostly having mutated animals.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a lot of sense in terms of the turtles are the focus still.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got their friends or whatever.
This is my favorite part, because this is where Peter is basically telling them that he's more convinced than ever that the bad guys should be mutant animals. You can kind of see him pushing back on that, and I think we all know how that turned out. I love all of the talk about not making things too silly, especially in hindsight, knowing how Turtles kind of turned out. But I just love that, like, man, Kevin and Peter knew what they wanted, and they were really good at collaborating to turn this into something special. And clearly, it all worked out in the end, and it turned into something that was a phenomenal success. And it all started with these conversations that we are now bearing witness to because they had the foresight to videotape all of this stuff. And this is just a small taste of this entire thing. And this will be presented as a special feature on this documentary that is being offered right now through Kickstarter. So this is where things get even more exciting, because if you're a toy fan like me, there are some pretty cool perks that go along with this documentary on Kickstarter, because being offered as add-ons are a few action figures. First of all, one of the action figures that is being offered is the Punked Out Commando. This is actually based on one of those original pitches, that original artwork for one of Shredder's henchmen. We could even see this piece of artwork in those videos that we were just looking at from way back in the day at Playmates Toys. This character is being brought to life for the first time as an action figure, sculpted by legend Steve Varner, who was the man behind the sculpting on the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. In addition to that, we're also going to get the first ever official action figures for the creators of TMNT, Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. These are both official figures, officially licensed, and both also will be sculpted by Steve Varner. Now, Definitive Films also sent me along some exclusive footage to get an early look at the 3D printed prototypes for these sculpts, and it is worth noting that these are not at all final. For example, the Punked Out Soldier here is pretty much a one-to-one translation of that original artwork. But one of the things that they definitely want to do is make it a little bit more Playmates-like. Same can be said for both Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. They did note that these are not the final figures. These are just the standard kind of upright stances for both of these just to get that sculpt done. But I do believe the plan is to make these a bit more Playmates in style. And if there's one critique that I could give, it's exactly that. I think these look great, and I am very excited about the idea of getting brand new figures, especially of unreleased stuff. And who am I kidding? Getting action figures of Eastman and Laird is amazing, something that I definitely think we should have. But I definitely want these to feel like they belong in that original TMNT toy line. Getting Steve Varner involved is the right thing to do. He's actually a perfect sculptor for these, but I just want them to be a little bit chunkier there. You can even see, like, compared to some of the actual vintage figures in the shots there, I just want that Punked Out Soldier to maybe be a little less pre-posed. I know the vintage line did have some pre-posing going on, but I think we should have some articulation so that he looks like he can stand some different ways, maybe have a little bit more of that chonk to it, and definitely the same for Eastman and Laird. Like, they need to look like Eastman and Laird, but they need to have that chonk to it. I'm thinking like Playmates, like Dick Tracy figures or something like that. I don't know if that's what everybody wants, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking there. But again, I did talk to Definitive Films about that. I don't know if that makes me like an official consultant, but we had this discussion and they did tell me that that's the plan. Absolutely. That they are still working on these and they will be posting updates throughout the entire Kickstarter campaign and beyond. So the good news is that the Kickstarter goal has already been met. It was met within the first 48 hours of launch. But now we have until October 14th to back this so that you could get all of this amazing footage for yourself and so that you can add on these incredible action figures. There's a whole list of other perks that are also being offered, and I would highly suggest checking it out. I'll make sure I link to it down in the video description below. And I also want to give a very special thanks to the Definitive Films for allowing me to share this amazing, mind-blowing footage of history being created with one of my all-time favorite franchises. If anything, I really hope that this is something that you guys enjoyed as well. For fans of history like this, seeing something like this be created, it's really like rare to see this sort of discussion happening like this. And I'm just so thankful that they recorded this and that they gave it and allowed it to be viewed publicly for all of us to see. So definitely go check out what Definitive Films is doing with their brand new TMNT documentary over on Kickstarter. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if your mind was as blown as mine was. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and until next time.